Thank you all for coming today. My name is Chris Benner. I'm the faculty director of the Institute for Social Transformation. We're super excited today to be here for an end-of-year celebration and student flash talk honoring the work that students have accomplished with their faculty mentors in the Building Belonging program. So what you'll hear today is presentations from the students who've been involved in this year's Building Belonging program, which you'll hear a bit more about in just a second. But I want to start by acknowledging that the land on which we gather is the unceded territory of the Awaswas-speaking Yupi tribe. The Amamutsan tribal band, comprised of the descendants of indigenous people taken to Mission Santa Cruz and San Juan Bautista during Spanish colonization of the Central Coast, is today working hard to restore traditional stewardship practices on these lands and heal from historical trauma. And if you have not yet learned about the work of the Amamutsan tribal band, I would really encourage you to go to their website. One of the issues that's really important for them at the moment is a threat to some of their sacred ancestral land called Uristock, and there's a planned gravel quarry that's being put into that area that a environmental impact report is coming out any day, which will have a 60-day period of comment on that environmental impact report. So I would encourage you to go to their website and learn more about that issue and to sign their petition if you're so moved. There's a whole coalition of environmentalists and human rights people helping to support their campaign. A couple of housekeeping items. We tried to roughly organize the talks in similar topics. So you'll see a bit of a theme through environmental issues and health issues and on to others going through, but not exactly because students could be available at different times. We don't plan to have any official breaks between the talks. It'll be about an hour and a half of presentations, and we're not planning for Q&A after the talks themselves because we will have a reception afterwards. So what I would encourage you to do is if you have a question for a particular student or faculty mentor about their project, note it, and then you'll have a chance to talk to them afterwards outside on the patio for a reception that will be available to be there until 5:30. We are not streaming this event, but we are recording it, and it will be up on our website afterwards. So it'll be a chance for those students to show that to family and friends if they're not able to be here in person today. And the order of the presentations is on our website, but I will be announcing it. And for those of you who are presenting students, I'll mention who's coming up next, as well as who's on deck. And so if you can, if you're on deck, next in line, that's a baseball metaphor, sorry, anyway, if you don't know baseball. But if you can come over on this side to be prepared so that when the one team finishes and exits from the stage that side, the next team can be coming up quickly, and so we can be efficient in that downtime in between presentations. And then in order to tell us more about the Building Belonging program, I would like to introduce our Dean of Social Sciences, Catherine Mitchell. Catherine, would you like to come up and say a few words?
Thanks, Chris. It's so wonderful to be here. What a beautiful day. Can I just, before I start, see, are there any graduating seniors here today? Can I just say, we're so proud of you. I'm leaving tomorrow morning to go see my daughter graduate, and so I'm getting a little misty-eyed even I'm thinking about it. And I just want to say it's really amazing. It's really something special. And don't ever let anyone take this away from you. This is a major moment of your lives and a huge accomplishment. So congratulations. So let me just tell you a little bit about this program. It's called Building Belonging, and it's really, really dear to me. It's special to me for a lot of reasons, but I think the main one is I think it really works. There's one thing you can say about professors at a Research One university, and that is that they really love to do research. And that's their passion. And if we can bring that passion into instruction, into the lives of the students in a really concrete way, then we're doing something magical. And I don't take anything away from what happens in the classroom. The classroom is a really important space of learning. but to be engaged with the research mission of the university and of a specific faculty member that you respect, and the doing work that you find meaningful to you, that is something that I think makes this program really special. And when Chris and I were thinking about developing something that we could do to make students feel at home and that they're part of this community at the research university, we came up with this idea of this building belonging, because the piece of mentorship is really important, that you're actually working with the faculty directly, and that it's open to students who otherwise might need to work during that time period. They might not have the opportunity to do this research. So making these opportunities paid was very, very important to us. And I just want to say that the people who enabled that we could offer these $1,500 fellowships to allow these opportunities to be paid, are sitting in this room, and they're in the back because they're very modest. But I want to give a shout out to Claudia and Alec Webster. So let me give you some numbers, because it's pretty impressive what's happened so far with this program. Since it was launched in 2020, we've awarded over 220 student fellowships, totaling more than $340,000, all of which goes directly to students. And that has supported over 90 faculty research projects. And this, as you'll see from the hearing each other's work today, it provides the student fellows an opportunity to share this research with the community and to learn from this experience about whether or not graduate school is something for them, or whether you want to go on to something else like this. And even if you don't, the experience of working with the faculty, shows you that you belong at this university. So today we're going to hear from 39 students who are sitting here who have taken on this research projects. They range from climate change, implications to our economy, immigrant justice and belonging, the social impacts of COVID, insect diversity, chimpanzees, and a lot more. And if you want more information about this, it's please visit the Institute's website. It's Transform UCSC Edu Building Belonging Fellows. So please join me in welcoming this absolutely incredible work.
Great. And so our first speakers will be Carmela Senizeros and Kahina Wilhite, who worked with Andrew Matthews from the Anthropology Department. So come on up. And next up after that is Kayla Ott and Anthony Estrella. So you could come and get up a little closer over here.
Hello, everybody. My name's Carmela.
And I'm Kahina.
And so we are both part of the Anthropology Department. We worked with Professor Andrew Matthews to recover colonial histories of oak trees here on our campus. So our project is essentially combining oak tree ages and archival evidence to tell a story about colonial ranching and 20th century fire suppression on campus. We've been learning how to core trees with an instrument called a borer, which looks like this. And then we are counting the tree rings from our samples that we take, which kind of look like this. I know it's really hard to see. If you want to see it up close, you can come by after and ask us. But yeah, so we've been looking at the tree rings from our samples that we take to count them, see how old the trees are. And with this, it's actually pretty difficult to know the actual age of the trees because like the trees you see above ground are usually younger than the root systems that they have. So the samples that we take kind of aren't an actual, they don't represent how old the tree actually is and how long it's been there. So that's kind of difficult.
So why is this important? It's important to understand the history of logging practices and fire suppression on campus, and in order to better manage the land in the future. So, for example, these oak trees, they're only as old as the last fire because of the way that the tree is, and there are the roots underneath, but Understanding that there are certain trees that need fire and there are some that are not fire dependent, and the way that our forests now look on Upper Campus in order to keep it healthy and keep our trees happy. And then something that we found really interesting about our project was just the technical aspect of working with the borers and being out in the field with the professor and learning about the ecology. And then we also learned a really important part of research, which is that it takes much longer than you anticipate. And if you aren't properly prepared, there are a lot of errors that can occur, which we've experienced quite a bit, but yeah.
So I guess to end with like outcomes that we've learned. So we've, like Kahana just said, learning the process of field work. It's never going to go as you anticipate. It's always going to take like way longer. You're always going to run into issues. But also we've learned that like slowing down and analyzing the ecology of the space you're taking samples from is important, instead of like taking a sample, going back to the lab and like just analyzing the small specimen that you have. It's important to like look at the grand scheme of things and look at the ecology and everything together.
Yeah, so we hope that you guys walk away from this having learned a little bit about dendrochronology, the subfield within archaeology, and how it can help better our campus.
So next up is Kayla Ott and Anthony Estrella on Chimpanzee video coding team, and next on deck is Janine Tan and Jennifer Valadez. So please welcome Kayla.
Hi. Oh, sorry. My name is Kayla Ott. Tony couldn't be here because he's currently studying abroad in the Netherlands, but he wishes he could be here. But yeah, I'm Kayla Ott, and I'm on the Chimpanzee video coding team through the anthropology department. And what we do is we take camera trap footage of wild chimpanzees and other wildlife from the Isa Valley in Tanzania. And so not just looking at chimpanzees, we also document the faunal diversity of the Isa Valley. So that can include leopards, gannettes, porcupines, and just a wide array of animals. And then we also look at chimpanzee group composition, so sex and age. We look at their behaviors, and we're also able to identify individuals based on their morphological traits. And so this year we were able to complete 33,800 videos that all came from the year 2019. And through this grant, I was able to serve as the undergraduate advisor for the team. So I compiled and cleaned all of the data. Compiled it in Excel and cleaned it in R with the help of our one of our postdoctorate researchers in the Pima lab, Gail Broxberger. And then I also assisted PhD candidate Seth Phillips with chimpanzee behavioral analysis at termite mounds, looking at how chimpanzees interact with the mounds based on ecological factors. And we used that, the behavioral software Boris. And yeah, so this grant allowed me to focus on research instead of taking on a third job. And it also allowed me to just build really strong working relationships with undergraduate students, the PI of the primate ecology molecular anthropology lab, and it also allowed me to like work with PhD candidates and postdoctoral researchers, and yeah, just really assess if research is for me, and it definitely is. So yeah, thank you.
So on deck will be Julian Barragan, but now please welcome Janine Tan and Jennifer Valadez, who work with Karen Hull in the Environmental Studies Department on can scraping and mounding help improve native annual wildflower establishment.
Hello, everyone. Thank you. Hello, everyone. Our research question for our Building Belonging Fellowship is, can scraping and mounding help improve native annual wildflower establishment? I'm Jennifer.
And I'm Janine.
Our faculty mentor through this whole process is Dr. Karen Hull and Dr. Justin Leon.
Annual native forests have always been an important part of California's coastal prairies, and they are hard to establish because they are sensitive to competition. Soil scraping can remove soil seed banks, thereby reducing invasive competition for native species. We are creating mounds because we wanted to see if they can mimic what gopher mounds do, as they have also been found to positively affect native species as they bring up the soil seed bank from underground while also providing soil aeration.
So our research questions we're trying to explore are will the effects of scraping the soil off the ground affect the plots prior to planting native forbs and affect the plant survival or cover? Second is, will the mounds we created from the scraped soil improve native wildflower establishment? And third is, will the soil moisture in the soil mounds be lower than that of the soil moisture in the scraped soil?
We conducted the field experiment at Younger Lagoon Reserve, part of the UC Natural System here in Santa Cruz. The site is a 10 meter by 10 meter areas with 18 plots divided into 3 treatment groups: control, soil scraping, and soil mounding. Plots were planted with 6 annual native forbs, and 2 perennial grasses.
So preliminary results suggest that by scraping the soil off the top of the area, the biomass production of unplanted non-native species will be reduced and will increase the native species cover and survival. On the soil scraped mounded areas, there will be lower native or invasive species cover relative to native species, and soil moisture will also be highest on soil mounds. We're still collecting data into the summer, and Janine will be writing up the result in her thesis in the fall. Now we'll continue the experiment to the next year.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
So on deck is Edwina Malmberg, and now please welcome Julian Barragan, who worked with Rob Fairley in the economics department.
Hello. More than 3 million self-employed business owners in the United States were forced to shut down their shops from February to April of 2020 during the early onset of the COVID-19 pandemic. This constituted nearly a quarter of all active business owners in the US at the time. The disproportionate financial losses experienced by African American, Latino, and immigrant self-employed business owners is especially concerning since these groups experienced a 36% average loss in all business activity at the time. I'd be surprised if nobody here, or some people here, didn't personally know a business owner that didn't pause or close down their occupation in 2020. So, under the mentorship of Professor of Economics, Professor Robert Fairley, I dedicated my time to further analyzing how the US COVID-19 pandemic context affected US small businesses. My goal was to measure how these businesses' annual earnings changed in 2020, which would serve as an indicator of how they performed that year, given the pandemic and given the ensuing regulations on physical proximity or social distancing. I utilized statistical tools like Stata, Excel, and the US Census Bureau's newer current population survey data to carry out these analyses. And after all the research was said and done, the key result I found was that while both self-employed owners and small business salary workers saw their earnings fall that year overall, self-employed owners experienced a double loss, or a loss that was double to that of salary workers, which Professor Fairley and I thought was quite interesting. A less surprising finding, however, was that female business owners and self-employed owners of color did indeed suffer much greater financial losses than white self-employed owners in 2020. So, while white self-employed business owners only saw losses of less than 1% of their annual earnings, Black and Asian self-employed owners saw 16% loss, which is significantly more. And it was the greatest earnings loss of all gender and racial groups reported by the US Census Bureau that year. So, similar studies have already been done on this topic by much more professional researchers than I, including Professor Fairley. But for economic and health crises such as this, it's crucial to continually corroborate and confirm the pandemic's deterioration of American small businesses and how it's intensified wealth inequality in the US, especially against the more vulnerable demographics in our country. That's the bulk of the project. I'd like to thank the Building Belonging Program for sponsoring this research opportunity, and especially thank Professor Robert Fairley for sharing his academic experience and great advice with me. Thank you.
So on deck is actually a video from a couple of students who couldn't be here. And so please welcome Edwina Malmberg, who worked with Matt Spark in the politics department.
Hi everyone, my name is Edwina Malmberg and I am a sociology student working with Professor Matt Spark from the politics department. Our research project is titled Community Health Workers and the Mitigation of Misinformation about COVID-19. In our project, we focus on understanding strategies to combat misinformation about COVID-19, and we focus in learning what are the lessons from other researchers around the world on super diversity, migrant health, and the mitigation of infodemics. And we especially put attention in understanding the healthy immigrant effect theories and applying it to the context of COVID, and also understanding what makes migrants vulnerable, what are the factors that increase their risk during the pandemic, and also identifying what public services and migrant networks help them. So my part in the research project was to conduct literature reviews, identify studies written in Spanish from Latin America, and document those findings. So I learned how to use Zotero, which is a software that allows you to manage large amounts of bibliographic data. And in that picture in the corner, you can see me in a meeting with Professor Spark, and we were looking at the library that we created together. Also, I had the opportunity to volunteer in the UC Health Day, and that's the picture I met the keynote speaker, Rupa Maria, and also connected with other students from different campuses. And I think that all of these experiences really helped me to grow professionally, because I learned new skills and also found a community of experts in public health that really motivate me to continue a master's in the future in public health. Personally, I think this work is very important because as an immigrant myself, I have witnessed how here in the US and also in my home country, Panama, those with fewer resources are the most affected by misinformation. And I think that this kind of program has really empowered me to know that there are things that Professor Spark says that individuals like us and community health workers can really make an impact in protecting our people. And I hope that in my future I can be support to advocate for the health of migrants in my community in Panama. So thank you so much, Professor Spark, and thank you for the opportunity.
So on deck is Caitlin Schlitt, and now we'll hear from Valerie Garcia and Julie Sofishki, who work with Jamie Morse in the sociology department. Bodies of evidence.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Julie.
And my name is Valerie.
And we have the pleasure of working with Professor Morse on a project titled Bodies of Evidence, which looks into the controversies surrounding injury detection in post-rape care in domestic and humanitarian contexts. I joined the project this quarter, but this is a long-term initiative that includes the work of Professor Morse and many students.
I joined roughly a year ago in the summer of 2021. The methods included an extensive literature review that goes back to the 1950s, and interviews with more than 50 doctors, nurses, lawyers, activists, and other experts to understand how clinical findings have changed over time and its geopolitical contexts.
The results show that the definition of what is considered clinical evidence for sexual violence has been shifting over time, and the controversy about whether or not clinical findings can corroborate survivor testimony persists. Our contributions include coding documents, transcribing interviews, and writing memos.
But perhaps the most interesting and fun was participating in creating and presenting the project poster at UC's Global Health Day earlier this month, which you can see on the slide. Lastly, we want to thank the Building Belonging program and Professor Morse for the opportunity to participate in this research, the skills we have gained, and the mentorship we have received. This project gives us the opportunity to engage in passion work because this research is extremely important, and we are very fortunate to have a role in such a project. Thank you.
So on deck is Alcides Fuentes, and so please welcome Caitlin Schlitt, Building Research Capacity and Global Environmental Justice.
Hello, everybody. My name is Kate, and I would like to first start off by thanking Building Belonging and also my advisor, Professor Ravi Rajan. He has been an amazing support system throughout this senior thesis of mine, which is tentatively entitled Pollution, Poverty, and Environmental Justice, a case study in Richmond, California, which is my hometown. If y'all are unfamiliar with the city of Richmond, California, it's a city that's entwined with refineries. There's Chevron refinery specifically, but there's also Shell refinery in a neighboring city called Vallejo. And although I cannot go into the breadth of my paper, which is about 30,000 words long, I thought it would be interesting to show you an image of what the map of the site of Chevron looks like. So here you can see the air districts that operate and are Chevron affiliated. They are in like yellow, turquoise, and purple colors as you see spread within the marks of this image. There's also, you can see neighboring freeways, and there's also in red, and then there's also black railroad tracks, and the green lines, the dashed lines that you see are the Chevron fence line monitoring site, and this monitoring site is supposed to be the area that the air monitors the pollution, whereas as we know, pollution permeates throughout these borders. Pollution permeates throughout all borders. And I also thought it would be interesting to show you this figure 2.3, which is in my chapter as well. This is the approximate size of the smoke coming from the Richmond refinery, from the crude 4 unit. And this was in August of 2012. I actually remember the day that this explosion happened. I remember the smell of it. I remember us having to close the doors because of it. And I think that this is extremely important work to do with respect to global environmental justice, with respects to environmental human rights justice. And I've had an amazing team help me work through this thesis. And I also want to note that I was inspired by many, many literatures. I started off this thesis with a literature review, and that helped me a lot form my argument as well throughout this thesis. And likewise, I also went to an event with Gina Dent, Angela Davis, and other co-authors of the book Abolition Feminism Now. And like they said in their speech, a lot of the work that we do is inspired from other work. So I'd also like to thank the authors who I wrote about as well, who inspired the theories that are within this thesis. And thank you.
So on deck is Mitzi, Christina, and Jennifer from the We Belong team. And now please welcome Alcides Fuentes, who also worked with Ravi Rajan from the Environmental Studies Department.
Hi, everybody. It's great to be here. Could you go back, actually? So my project was called Youth Climate Activism Across the Americas, envisioning the next generation of environmental leaders and their obstacles to success. And the reason that I wanted to study this is because I myself have been involved in community organizing, climate organizing in the last couple years before the pandemic. And I noticed that, like, as a person of color, it's kind of hard to, like, be volunteering at, like, orgs and stuff and, like, having to, like, put maybe, like, work time aside to, like, volunteer at a protest, right? And so that kind of got me interested in how it is for people abroad in Latin America doing climate justice stuff. And as y'all might know, in some countries, like, if you're an environmentalist, you can be, like, put in, like, a lot of danger for, like, the stuff that you do. And, like, you know, especially now with, like, climate change and stuff, there's a lot of young people that are involved. And so if you could go to the next slide. Yeah, so the method of my research was that I wrote a little bit about my own story, and then I met some climate activists who went to COP this last year, and I reached out to them and stuff. And one of the stories that stood out to me the most was this woman by the name of Isis Riquelme. She is a 22-year-old woman from Chile who is a mom and is also a spokesperson for 3 orgs in Chile at a national level. They're like do climate stuff pretty much. And yeah, I basically interviewed her about, you know, what her experiences were like and what she saw that the US could do better for Latin America and stuff. Yeah, and then, so what I found from that was that she basically told me, like, she's a spokesperson, so, like, her responses were really, like, intense. And she was basically like, the US, like, what we can do here to help in Latin America is to, you know, fight against, like, extractive industries, like, mine companies and, like, other companies that, like, pollute the water and stuff. And she told me a lot about, like, the different levels of pollution in Chile and in other places in Latin America. And it was just kind of interesting to learn, like, here, you know, I might go to a protest and I can go home, right? Or, like, I can still breathe clean air. But in places in Latin America, like, they live in, like, different kinds of environments, or, like, I interviewed this other person who, they work a lot with, like, waste disposal because they just have, like, mountains of trash, like, in their neighborhood, right? So yeah, it was really interesting to see the difference between youth climate activism in Latin America and here. Yeah, and basically what I took away from it was that we in the United States have a large role to play to mitigate that, but also to not take the lead on it. Is more to, like, support what they're doing because their lives are important too, pretty much. So yeah, thank you.
So on deck is Marlene Nava, and now please welcome Mitzi Acevedo, Jennifer Amy Martinez, and Cristina Gonzalez.
Hello, my name is Cristina Gonzalez.
My name is Jennifer Aime Martinez.
My name is Mitzi Acevedo, and under the We Belong Campus Community Engaged Research Project led by Professor Steve McKay, we conducted our own research project mentored by Professor Dina Langau and PhD candidate Daniel Ramirez. We wanted to understand how immigrant people navigate and resist systemic discrimination to regain ontological security, which is a sense of trust in the reliability of others.
In order to better understand how immigrant peoples experience belonging in Santa Cruz County, We transcribed and analyzed 33 interviews with immigrant people from the community. Through a grounded theory approach, this means that we developed quotes from participants' experiences to find literature that was relevant to them. Throughout the analysis, we connected empirical articles, participants' experiences, and our own experiences as part of the Latinx community together. We embraced our roles as researchers with deep cultural knowledge in relation to marginalization and exclusion to relate and best advocate alongside the Latinx immigrant community. This was done through coding by consensus in self-reflective and relational ways.
Hello. And throughout this whole process, I do want to mention that we started from the Lit Review up until the Community Resource event with the support of the Building Belonging Fellowship. But I also want to emphasize how this whole research process has allowed us to develop our own aspirations for the future. And we ended up developing a zine that we would like to show y'all at the end of the event. Hopefully y'all can check it out in the back, accessible both in Spanish and in English. And we basically compiled our findings and included participants' lived experiences in relation to adversity and different obstacles and barriers, but emphasizing on the ways in which they regain a sense of strength through their cultural identities and language in order to then regain their emotional capital or ontological security and then navigate different institutions in Santa Cruz County. Yeah, and then, want to close this off?
We would like to thank Steve McKay for sharing part of his project with us. We would also thank Gina Langout, which has been one of the head leaders of the research, as well as Daniel Rodriguez Ramirez, who has been the leader of our team. Thank you very much.
On deck is Dylan, and now please welcome Marlene Nava, who worked with Steve McKay on We Belong collaboration for community engaged research and immigrant justice.
Sorry, I'm really short. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm excited to be here today and share with you all my experience in the We Belong project, a collaboration for community engaged research and immigrant justice. In our project, we investigated how the social and political climate of Santa Cruz County shapes the experiences of immigrant families. What distinguishes this project from others is our proficiency to work collaboratively with undergraduate students who share similar background and experiences as the families that we interviewed. From 2018 to 2021, 200 undergraduate students, including myself, received guidance from faculty and graduate students to conduct 100 interviews and 6 focus groups with social service providers and members of mixed status families. In the data analysis phase, I worked on a team that transcribed, translated, and coded 75 interviews in English and Spanish. We worked together to develop a codebook and the data coding process using Deduce, a data analysis software. This enabled us to develop similar approaches when deciding to code in pairs and eventually code individually. Throughout the collective data analysis process, we identified 6 common themes, each containing 3 sub-themes for belonging and 3 for not belonging. As the image above shows, we first looked at the crosscodes recorded over 10 times in Deduce. Then, we identified their 3 most frequent sub-themes for belonging and not belonging. And lastly, selected quotes that authentically depicted their 3 most frequent sub-themes for belonging and not belonging. While the legal status of an individual or multiple family members does inhibit belonging, the role of the community and community-based organizations are central to promote belonging. Thank you, Building Belonging Program and Professor Steve McKay for the opportunity to be in the We Belong project. I'm eternally grateful.
On deck is Hananiel Siraji. Please welcome Dylan Waste, who worked with Kent Eaton on a project, Indigeneity in the Constitution.
Hi, everyone. My name is Dylan, and I'm a second-year politics major. And this quarter, me and Professor Eaton worked on a project called Indigeneity and the Constitution: Struggles for Ethnic Autonomy in Latin America. You can. Yeah, thank you. So primarily, our research questions, there's two different ones. The first one is, how did Andean constitutions transform territorial autonomy? So looking at the constitutions themselves and like the literature that developed analyzing said constitutions, we were able to deduce that open access to decision-making spheres, influential allies in the cohesion and organization of an indigenous population are all positively correlated with the successful adoption of territorial autonomy. Kind of moving away from this like de jure transformation, then we also posit, how have indigenous communities fought for the implementation of TA? Primarily, we kind of looked at two comparative cases. So Bolivia, the country in Latin America with the highest proportion of indigenous individuals, and Colombia, which is on the other end of that spectrum with the lowest. Primarily, I'm just like, in the sake of time, only gonna focus on kind of one strategy to agitate for implementation, and that is prior consultation. It's basically a legal practice that gives indigenous communities the right to say no to extractive development projects on their territory, primarily despite comprising almost 60% of the population in Bolivia. Indigenous individuals have really been stifled by the state's claimed supremacy over natural resources in their country. There's not a recognition of indigenous rights to resources in the country, and that has really, like I said, kind of stifled the implementation of TA. On the other hand, despite being a relatively small portion of the population in Colombia, indigenous individuals and the implementation of territorial autonomy in particular have really been championed by the Colombian Constitutional Court. Their decisions have really implemented prior consultation in the country and have pushed the implementation of territorial autonomy further within the state. I want to thank Professor Ken Eaton for his time, mentorship, and the experience, and I want to thank the Institute of Social Transformation for enabling this opportunity. Thank you.
On deck is Yaneli and Lizeth, and please welcome Henaniel Saraji, who worked with Jeremy Yamashiro in the psychology department on simulating conversations.
Hello, everyone. My name is Henaniel Saraji, and I'd like to talk to you about the project that I worked on, simulating conversations, Markov chain model of central speakers, mnemonic influences over a group of communicating listeners. And so in the past, we've had experimental studies look at kind of how central figures, such as something like a politician, can reshape listeners' memories, as well as how the conversations themselves within the group afterwards can also impact it. And in this study, we wanted to see the long-term effects on collective memory in a large-scale setting, such as how convergence is impacted by the social network topology. Studies like these have actually been done in the past, but there are certain limitations, such as the group size and the number of conversations that can actually happen within the time frame. And so essentially the main limitation was the sort of scale we could actually run these experiments on. And then so the computational model, such as a Markov chain process, actually solves this problem by being able to sort of simulate the conditions that we are looking for, and that would otherwise be sort of difficult to achieve in a traditional setting. And so what I did was I helped code the simulation that would model the degrees of the central speaker influences on the group, and essentially we would let the code run in the simulation over multiple iterations until the effects stabilize into what is called our ergodic distribution, or our final states. And at this point in time, the paper is being finished up and getting close to being published, and I would like to thank Dr. Yamashiro for giving me the the opportunity to work on this project. Thank you.
On deck is Maria and Siobhan, and please welcome Yaneli Calderon and Lizeth Bautista, who worked with Rebecca London in the sociology department.
Hi, everybody. We're part of the We Belong Community Support for Girls' Health and Wellbeing, a partnership with Salud and Cariño. My name's Lizeth Bautista.
My name is Yaneli Calderon, and throughout this project, we worked with Latinx students, and we partnered with Salud y Cariño. Salud y Cariño is an after-school program for Latina youth and non-binary students, as some of them refer to themselves as they, them. And our intention for this project was to highlight Latinx experiences pre and post-pandemic. So we conducted a series of interviews, grades 6 through 12, with voluntary students. Within a span of 4 months. So we attended their after-school meetings and school events. And Salud y Cariño's goals for their students is primarily to take action and gain confidence through physical activities, prevention, and education.
Our findings were gathered using qualitative methods through in-depth interviews and gathering and organizing Salud documents, and doing participant observation field notes. We also worked along with 2 grad students to guide students through a photo voice project in order to visually capture a visual representation of their individual experience during COVID and their also their participation with Salud and Cariño.
Mm-hmm. What we found was that COVID affected their mental health and a shift in their relationship with family and friends, as some of them expressed that they had more conflict within their households, but on the other hand, you had them also say how they had a stronger bond. But overall, they all experienced a lack of resources within their schools, which added to that isolating feeling and struggled to keep up within their classes.
We also found out that students coming back in person expressed feeling stuck in the grade that they were in when COVID started. It felt difficult to carry that expectation to act their grade when they still felt really unprepared. But we also found that Salud really helped the students with their mental health by supporting them through community-engaged activities through Zoom that they did during the pandemic.
Yeah.
And through this project, we really learned how vital it is to have programs for underrepresented youth and create a strong sense of community that help and guide students through supportive and interactive activities to persevere through a social phenomenon. And although they didn't receive that support from their classes, they were still able to have that through Salud, as it helped them continue being resilient in school and their own well-being.
And now we're going to show a 50-second clip about some of the interviews that we conducted with some of the students. As you can see in the video, we transcribed it in Spanish as we presented it to their family during an open house event.
The students in the interview clip we're going to show are, their names are Janitza, who goes by she, they pronouns, and Amy, who goes by she, hers, and they're both juniors in high school.
Mm-hmm.
And you can play the clip now.
Yeah.
I've been with Salud since 5th grade, so a good 7 years. And they've actually helped me a lot immensely, not only as just like support, but they've also helped me with like career type of things and how to get into college because I'm first gen, and just kind of like helping imply different skills to my everyday living.
It is like a family. Like I would even argue that like it saved my life a couple times, like especially during the pandemic. It was really nice to have Teresa and Margaret and the girls there because we were all going through the same thing and we were able to like support each other. So that was really nice.
Yeah, it was like a big group therapy.
Yeah.
All right, thank you everybody. I also want to give, I wanted to give like thanks to Rebecca London for helping us be a part of this research group and being able to interact with these amazing students at Salud and Cariño, and definitely helped me continue my aspiration of hopefully one day becoming a high school counselor and opening up my own nonprofit, because it really does help students, especially students of color who really need that support.
Mm-hmm.
at home. Yeah. Thank you.
Kaylee Baker, you're on deck. And now please welcome Maria Ryan and Siobhan Moore, who worked with Hannah Hausman in the psychology department on errors, friend or foe of learning.
Hi, I'm Siobhan.
Hi, I'm Mariah.
We collaborated with Dr. Hannah Hausman on an experiment that investigates the forward effective testing, which occurs when practicing retrieving previously studied information enhances learning of subsequently presented new information. Our objective was to examine whether the amount of retrieval practice affects the size of the forward effective testing.
Participants learned 3 lists of Swahili English translations and either restudied all translations, recalled half of the translations, or recalled all translations after each of the first 2 lists. All participants took a cued recall test on the 3rd list. Practicing retrieving lists 1 and 2 led to a better learning of list 3 compared to restudying lists 1 and 2.
Amount of retrieval practice didn't matter though. Retrieving a subset of lists 1 and 2 or retrieving all of lists 1 and 2 led to the same improvement in list 3 learning compared to restudying. The forward effective testing is therefore greater after engaging in even just some retrieval practice. This can be explained by study effort, and participants spent more time studying list 3 in the 2 retrieval practice conditions than in the restudy condition.
The findings suggest that students may be better able to learn new information after retrieving previously learned information because it gives students a more accurate indicator of how much effort they may need to put forth to truly learn the material. Our contributions to this project included programming using LabVanced, comparing tools for cleaning the data, R versus Excel, analyzing and interpreting the data, and writing the methods.
So this program has allowed me to further my experiences in a field that I'm passionate about, which is psychology, and learn from other students who are also passionate about their fields. And from that, I think I've joined a great community of students with whom I'll be able to learn from and expand my interests.
Because of this program, I have had a better opportunity to take the time to immerse myself amongst other research-driven peers and faculty. This has opened more doors for me, allowing me to be able to connect with other like-minded individuals and feel more confident in my own ability to continue to pursue research. Thank you.
So on deck is another video from students who couldn't make it, so please welcome Kaylee Baker, who worked with Hannah Hausman in the psychology department on own race bias in face name learning of historical figures.
Hi, my name is Kaylee Baker. So as Dawn just said, I worked on the project Own Race Bias in Face Name Learning in Historical Figures. I worked under the mentorship of Hannah Hausman on an independent study. And before getting into kind of what the project is, I wanted to define a few key terms. So own race bias is the psychological phenomenon of people being more likely to recognize faces of their own race than those of another race. And face name learning is pretty much just matching a face to a name, being able to learn that. And so we wanted to look at how does the own race bias affect face name learning, especially in historical contexts. We felt it was important to look at historical contexts because, as we know in education, historically we have seen a trend of only seeing white faces in history, and so we wanted to take a look at how own race bias might affect how we should be teaching history, and how to get kids and other people studying history to be able to better remember the names of faces of historical figures. So to do that, we took, for our methods, we are doing a pre-test, learn phase, and then a post-test. So the slide you see up here is what is part of our pre-test and post-test. So people will see the photo of a historical figure have to say whether or not they recognize the historical figure, and then they will have a multiple choice question and asking the name, and they'll have to provide a confidence interval. And we did a pre-test, post-test trial because we believe that there is greater than chance there's a possibility that that like people might already be familiar with some of the people that are on our trials. So then for the learn phase, they'll be able to see the picture and the name of the people that we are presenting to them, and then on the post-test they'll see similar slides, but they'll also see some people that may not have been on the learn phase, and they have to be able to distinguish whether or not the figure that they're seeing is someone that they had seen in the learn phase or if it's a new figure. And so the opportunities that this program has given to me is basically creating this project from the ground up. As I mentioned, it's an independent study, and so I worked really closely with Professor Hausman to create this study and create the methods and write an introduction and like the beginnings of a research paper. We haven't run trials yet, but I will have the opportunity to run trials and participants come fall, pending IRB approval. And the program has really also given me the opportunity to be involved with Professor Hausman's lab and make professional connections with other students and other professors as well. So thank you so much.
So on deck is Alma, and now we'll hear a video from Abigail Eduarda Espinosa and Tara McAteer, who worked with Professor Leslie Lopez, another We Belong project.
Hi, I'm Abby. I am a sociology and psychology double major and a recent graduate of UC Santa Cruz.
And I'm Tara. I'm a legal studies and anthropology double major, and I'm graduating in June. And our faculty mentor was Professor Leslie Lopez. So the We Belong project as a whole is a community-initiated, student-engaged research project that addresses questions by documenting the experience of immigrant families, their contributions, and the obstacles they face. The project as a whole aims to elevate immigrant voices, strengthen local community coalitions, and generate actionable knowledge to improve social services and inform policies to ensure all community members belong and thrive. As part of the We Belong project, Abby and I's research was primarily completed in pursuit of a better future for immigrants and their families in Santa Cruz County and beyond. Specifically, our coding and data analysis showed how barriers to belonging are perceived and how frequently certain barriers are mentioned. This analysis allowed us to draw conclusions about the most significant barriers to belonging for the Santa Cruz immigrant community.
And in order to further the findings of the We Belong project, we coded and analyzed transcripts using data analysis tools and deduce. And we did this by using the existing codebook and updating it as well as we saw fit. The codebook helped us bring to light the experiences of the immigrant community and helped show the specific obstacles that folks from the immigrant community faced. And some key takeaways were that we found that collaboration between the university, students, and the wider Santa Cruz community is an important learning experience and is necessary in order to resolve issues regarding immigrant justice in our county. And overall, we thought that the Building Belonging program gave us the opportunity to conduct meaningful research as undergraduate students with the guidance of an amazing mentor.
On deck is Serena, and please welcome now Alma Mungia Galvan, who worked with Patricia Pinho in the LALS department on whiteness and international academic mobility.
Hi everyone, my name is Alma Mungia Galvan. I'm a Latin American and Latino Studies and Legal Studies double major, and I was working with Professor Patricia Pino on her project, Whiteness and International Academic Mobility, the Impact of Living and Studying Abroad on the Racial Identity and Network Capital of White Brazilians. This project analyzes whiteness in the context of Science Without Borders, a program of the Brazilian federal government that funded the international academic mobility of over 93,000 college students between 2012 and 2016. The central hypothesis is that whiteness both impacted and was impacted by the Science Without Borders program, which favored, even if inadvertently, the admission of white students, whose white identity was in turn enhanced by their participation in the program. My contributions to this project were that I began to build a library of sources in both English and Portuguese on the Zotero tool. I sorted and tagged the sources by keyword and relevance to the research question. I did research to help Professor Pino finalize the proposal narrative. And then I researched foundations to identify potential sources for funding. And the key takeaways that I took from this whole experience is that I learned about the beginning stages of a research project, about how to do a literature review and how to use Zotero. I also practiced my oral and written Portuguese language skills and learned about the effectiveness of websites in conveying information. And overall, this was a very great experience. Thank you.
So on deck is Evelyn and Lauren. Now please welcome Serena Campbell, who worked with Hillary Angelo in the Sociology Department, identifying critical environmental work and needs on campus.
Sorry. Hello, everyone. My name is Serena Campbell, and I'm a third-year sociology and critical race and ethnic studies major. Under Building Belonging, I've worked on the project Identifying Critical Environmental Work and Needs on Campus with professors Hillary Angelo, Flora Liu, and Emily Marai. And then you can go, yeah. We define critical environmentalism as work that centers on themes of power relations, inequity, accessibility, epistemology, I always get that wrong, and social injustice to study the interrelationships between humans, non-humans, and the environment. On campus, there's a lot of faculty doing work that falls under this umbrella, but their efforts are not well coordinated. We want to figure out who is doing the work and help amplify it, as well as capture the faculty perspective on critical environmentalisms, as there has been a lot of research on students' perspectives, but not so much faculty. For this project, we first identified faculty doing this work on campus by looking at departmental websites and going through word of mouth. So far, we've identified about 75 people. Then we designed and disseminated a survey that's gotten 46 responses. Now I'm going to faculty's office hours to follow up on their survey responses and collect more in-depth information. So the preliminary key takeaways from the survey have been that faculty want support for research. That would include funding or course releases for seed projects, staff or GSR support, and a database of faculty courses and initiatives on these themes. And faculty want support for collaboration, which would include social gatherings with like-minded faculty and staff, as well as funding or course releases for seed projects. And the outcomes for this project will include a written report and a website or database of the network hosted on the Sustainability Office website. The findings will also be shared in a letter that will be distributed to the campus to advocate for more institutional support for research, teaching, and co-curricular activities around the theme of critical environmentalism. Thank you.
On deck is Lauren and Taman, and for now, please welcome Evelyn Aquino Cruz and Lauren Castaneda Molina, who worked with Erendira Quintana Morales in the Anthropology Department.
I don't know how close I should get. Okay, cool. You good? Hi, everyone. My name is Lauren Castaneda. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm a fourth-year anthropology and education double major.
Hello, everyone. My name is Evelyn Aquino Cruz. I'm an anthropology major as well, pronouns she, hers, and we work under the lab of Dr. Erendira Quintana Morales, and we will be examining the deep history of fishing in Africa.
Cool. So our lab examines the 16th and the 6th through 16th century fishery practices and their social ecological impacts in the Kafue River floodplain in Zambia. And this place is in Africa, sorry. And the two archaeological sites that we look at is Mialba and Basanga. And we analyze two different types of fishes, catfishes and tilapia, and we try to answer these following questions. What fish species do people exploit in this area? Did the types and sizes of fish change over time? And how did these patterns relate to social and ecological and environmental changes? And since we know that this presentation is going to be short, we also added a QR code to our lab workbook that you can check out and learn more information about our lab.
Yeah, so a little bit what we do in the lab is just we sort bones such as this image right here. So we sort like mainly the cranial of it and also like the spines. And what we do is we sort and we catalog them. And as Lauren said, you could scan the QR code and there we have a little bit more info about what we catalog. And currently, we have finished the first phase of sorting. So basically, it's just labeling what is what, and then, and we concentrate on like two sites, Basanga and Mioba sites. And our next steps would be to measure how certain bones, such as the spines, like compare one another, because we're dealing with two different sites. We want to compare those sites in terms of the sizes.
And before we end this presentation, we would like to thank the Building Belonging program for its support, and especially Dr. Quintana Morales for giving us a sense of belonging within our work and our community. Thank you.
Thank you.
On deck is Demetrius and Axel. Now please welcome Lauren Dunn and Taman Omalolu, who work with Stacy Philpott in the Environmental Studies Department.
Hello, welcome, and thank you for having us here. We will be presenting on insect diversity and ecosystem services in urban agroecosystems. My name is Taman Omalolu, and I'm an undergrad in the Environmental Studies Department.
My name is Lauren Dunn, and I'm an intensive psychology major. And we also worked with Sheil Grandi, who's a plant sciences major and is currently on field quarter. And we worked with Stacy Philpott, who's a faculty member in the Environmental Studies Department.
So, urban gardens are an important area of study as they can serve communities within the urban setting by combating food insecurity, serving as a gateway for civic engagement, and helping people in urban areas access nature. As for insects themselves, urban gardens can provide refuge for biodiversity within highly urbanized areas, by combating habitat loss, fragmentation, and degradation. Studying these sites can help us to better understand insect function within urban agroecosystems, as well as how insects can be a beneficial resource for communities both adjacent and working within urban agroecosystems.
Our goal within this research project has been to better understand how garden management practices and changes in landscape influence beneficial insect diversity, pest control, and crop production. The work that we do in this project consists of working in a lab setting to identify insects that have been collected from various different garden management sites to order species, family, and genus. And some of the takeaways we've gotten from this project has been working in a lab setting, utilizing lab equipment and resources, data collection and time management, as well as gaining tools for more in-depth insect identification.
We would like to thank Stacy Philpott, our faculty sponsor, for helping us with this project, and the Building Belonging Fellowship for sponsoring our research. Thank you.
On deck is Eileen and Robin. Now please welcome Demetrius Rodriguez and Axel Morales Sanchez, who work with Galena Hale in the Economics Department.
Hello, my name is Axel Morales. I'm a business management, economics, and mathematics/computational mathematics double major.
Hey, my name is Demetrius. I am an environmental studies, economics, and philosophy major, and we're both graduating this quarter.
Cool. We worked on a project called The Implications of Extreme Weather Events in Multinational Firms and the International Economy. Next slide, please. So our project was basically about economic geography regarding analyzing foreign direct investment, or FDI. the climate risk in sovereign countries and additional measures of climate awareness like emissions and financial policies. So basically what we were doing was just measuring the effect of climate change on FDI inflows.
Yeah, so we got to work with some really cool data, some of which is like CO2 emissions, other was like whether the country's like federal bank is willing to accept like certain types of emissions as green or certain types of corporations as green. We experienced a little bit of work with quantitative analysis, geospatial references, which is really exciting, and some data classification. So the geospatial reference was both in theory and in like actual data, which is really cool to see those side by side. And lastly, we worked with statistical inference or econometrics in these semi-high dimensional data sets. So for me, I did a lot of organizing and communication, which is what I'm pretty good at. And I'm sure that'll be essential in the future. I also explored a lot of interest in like geospatial research, and I'm strongly considering applying to PhD programs in geography or economic geography now.
I did a lot of data handling, a lot of late nights just working with data sets. I did a lot of data representations, including plots and maps like the one you see right there, which is basically a depiction of the total number of disasters, climate disasters, across many years for the entire world. I also got a first-person glance at what professional research looks like. Looking at Professors Galina and Grace's work was really amazing, and that kind of encouraged me and kind of to pursue research and pursue a PhD, which hopefully I'll be applying to, and hopefully they accept me. But we just want to thank Professors Galina Hale, Grace, and the program. Thank you.
Yeah.
On deck is Andrea and Cameron, and now please welcome Eileen Amador and Robin Hernandez, who work with Alicia Riley in the Sociology Department.
Hi everyone, my name is Robin Hernandez, and I'm a politics and sociology major.
And my name is Eileen Amador, and I'm a legal studies major and Geisses minor, and our faculty member is Alicia Riley.
The world that we live in is inherently unequal, and the impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic highlight this notion through the disparities of deaths within the Latinx community. Even though most of us are well aware of this fact, data from the CDC does not report on the impacts that families have after losing someone so unexpectedly.
Could we go back to the first slide, please? Thank you. We would like to acknowledge that this is a very heavy subject. Through these slides, we are sharing with you a glimpse of the faces of people that we lost throughout the pandemic that you can see on this first slide.
Could we go to the next slide, please? I would now like to read out our research question. What does a qualitative analysis of Spanish language GoFundMe posts related to COVID-19 deaths reveal about the social impacts of COVID-19 mortality among members of Latinx communities in the US?
We analyzed the GoFundMe posts, and our key term searches yielded over 10,000 results, of which over 260 posts met our criteria, focusing just on 2020 and 2021 results. We are currently qualitatively coding them using @TI, and you can see some of our results reflected on this slide.
And we're now going to highlight 4 main observations that we found in our search results for these GoFundMe posts, with 2 being family roles and responsibilities and financial hardships.
And the last 2 being bereavement and religiosity. Bereavement in the sense of mourning not being possible, as often other responsibilities take away people's chance to grieve. And on the other hand, religiosity playing a big tool in terms of dealing with that grief and the feeling of being left behind after a close member passes away.
What this research project means to the both of us is that it's essentially a wake-up call to better understand the disparities that Latinx communities experienced in the pandemic. This project hits close to home for the both of us, since we are the survivors who get to tell the stories of the people we lost within our own community.
We would like to conclude this presentation by stating a quote from a woman that was very impacted by a close family member death. "A person can never be prepared to let go of a loved one, which is what many of us are currently going through. Thank you so much.
On deck is Paulette. Please welcome Andrea Asher and Cameron Newburn, who worked with James Doucette Battle in the sociology department.
Hi, I'm Cameron Newburn, anthropology major.
And I'm Andrea Asher, sociology and human biology major.
First, we would like to thank Dr. Doucette Battle for his mentorship, the Building Belonging Program, and the Institute for Social Transformation. Our contributions to the project were to develop bibliography, writing, and analytical skills while contributing to the Oxford Bibliography project titled Race and Health in Anthropology. Here are a few of the main takeaways from the project. You can go to the next slide.
Yeah. One article of significance is by John S. Haller, where he presents an epistemology of racial hierarchy through case studies documented by physicians in the 19th century. Through case studies, Haller addresses imagined physiological differences of the Black body in relation to gender and racial categories of risk. In contrast, James Neal proposes the thrifty genotype hypothesis, a former genetic adaptation as a result of living through periods of food scarcity and food abundance. Neal's work is important because it attributes diabetes risk to environmental factors as opposed to racial factors.
More recently, Deborah Bolnick writes about the persistence of racialized assumptions of difference in the medical school curriculum and proposes solutions to better train students to provide culturally competent care. In her ethnography, Ashanti M. Reese addresses unequal access to food within a Black community in Washington, D.C. by incorporating interviews with community members. Reese's work highlights the importance of qualitative methods in illuminating the racialized intersections of space, place, and community.
This project contributed to my understanding of racialization in medicine and towards my future goal of becoming a physician.
This project also helped me design my future goals in entering a sociocultural anthropology PhD program.
Racism is a health crisis.
Make it your business.
Thank you.
Thank you.
On deck is Hassan and Leah. Now please welcome Paulette Garrido, who worked with Lars Ferenc-Schmitz in the anthropology department.
Hi, my name is Paulette Garrido, and I'm a fourth-year anthropology major, and I worked with Lars Ferenc-Schmitz for the colonial disease transfer and impact on Native South Americans. Next slide, please. My main project was working for the Catamarca, Peru database. We used ancient DNA analysis of human remains from Catamarca, Peru, to create a point of reference in comparison to the database of Machu Picchu, individuals from Machu Picchu, Peru. The database was created for the Machu Picchu, Peru. It was created by the UCSC paleogenomics researchers led by Lars and collaboration from Yale and George Washington University. These results can be used to determine which geographical area these individuals were originating from. About 98 samples were taken from 4 different sites in Catamarca. I learned how to use several minimally destructive techniques and to prep and process samples of ancient human remains, primarily teeth. These techniques gave me hands-on experience to continue in research for paleogenomics, such as teeth pulp drilling, cutting and milling, as well as bone analysis. Following the process of samples, I would continue with an extraction protocol that enables DNA to be extracted, purified, amplified, and then sequenced. These DNA samples sequence results can be used for specific genome markers that can be manipulated in different ways for different projects. One being a pathogen project that allows researchers such as PhD candidate Nazreen here at UCSC to follow disease pathogens in these specific groups of indigenous peoples. This data as a whole will allow the studies of paleogenomics to find a lot of different informations for this area in Peru. I would like to thank the Building Belonging program for the chance to immerse myself in the world of research and hopefully continue after I graduate.
And this is our last presentation. Please welcome Hassan Naeem and Leia Toledo, who work with Megan Budavine in the psychology department. Please come on up. So you can each do them right after each other. Okay. That's good.
So, hello everyone, my name is Hassan Naeem.
I'm Leah.
We worked with Megan Bodwin in the project Understanding Attention and Language Comprehension. So what I helped with was the EEG side of things. So the goal of this project is to investigate how using transcranial direct current stimulation, TDCS, which is a non-invasive brain stimulation treatment, can influence electrophysiological markers of attention measured with an EEG while participants completed 3 cognitive tasks. In other words, participants had their brain stimulated. It was in one of 2 different brain regions or not at all. And then afterwards, they completed 3 different tasks. There's like a language task, a working memory task, and one of the tasks I forgot about, while they got an EEG, to compare between the differences. And for those who don't know EEG, like I'm sure like you have at least seen a picture of it. It's like when people have like all the electrodes stuck on their scalp to like measure for electrical activity, and that's what that's what the data looks like. And so TDCS might be a viable treatment option for neuropsychiatric conditions such as depression, anxiety, Parkinson's, and chronic pain. But it's still unclear about whether TDCS can provide replicable benefits and just how effective it like really can be. And so my role in this project has been contributing to the pre-processing of the EEG data. EEG recordings are very sensitive to odd links and other sources of artifacts, so it's necessary to go through and filter that out so the relevant information is not corrupted. Basically, you have all these electrodes that are recording very sensitive data, and so if you have like eye blinks or other like muscle movements, that could mess with the data. And right here, actually, those are some eye blinks, and that's what they look like in the data. Yeah, so that's kind of what I've been learning what to do, spot out those out so that that can be filtered and the relevant information stays to be researched. Yeah, so my involvement in this project has provided me with valuable insight into the amount of effort into running an EEG study, and has provided some very valuable experience because knowing about EEG stuff is pretty specialized. So really cool that I have this experience. And yeah.
And then I worked on the attention, hold on, I'm short. I worked on the attention span. We conducted our data based on 3 different conditions that we tested on different subjects. And I think this project was important because we live in an era where we don't know when we may have to go back to online learning, and especially us students, all of our assignments are on Canvas, and most of our readings are through PDFs, and sometimes our attention span is really low or really high, and we don't, one second. And we look at a screen on average of 8 hours a day. And besides collecting data, my contributions were I was able to apply my own coding skills on the Excel to analyze the data that we gathered and be able to form my own hypotheses and conclusions. One of the research questions that guided my hypothesis was, how does comprehension test type impact attention lapsing during comprehension? And so my hypothesis was that poor reading performance will lead to too short or too long data entries instead of numerical data entries for the reading time.
In addition to the reading time data, I was able to create that graph, which is attention versus comprehension MCQ results. And the blue bar represents each individual subject's correct answers, and the orange one represents the incorrect answers, and the gray one represents the answers that each subject picked as no idea. And overall, the blue bar it shows it's more constant than any other bar. But as you can see, there's some where the gray bar is higher than both the correct answers and wrong answers, which shows how sometimes we zone out and we're not paying attention to what we're doing, which makes us not comprehend what we're reading or trying to learn. And this concludes that being on the screen every day affects This concludes that being on the screen often changes how long or how short our attention span lasts, especially those times where subjects are zoned out. Attention span varies during comprehension, as we concluded with the data of the different conditions. The study is still in progress, and I hope that Megan and other fellows are able to find different ways to improve attention span in remote learning. Thank you.
So I just have a few comments and acknowledgments to close us out. One is just reflecting on, wow, what an amazing set of student presentations. And part of what impressed me the most is, well, one thing is just the breadth of topics that students are working on kind of across the division. Really exciting to see that diversity of interests and the work that students are doing with our faculty. But the second was the depth and sophistication of their contributions to the research, and I think it really shows the capacity, skills, life experience, perspectives that our students bring to research on campus. It's a tremendous contribution and skills that you bring, all of you, with your expertise and life experience. And then, the professional presentation here today. It is really hard to present research in 2 minutes. I mean, ask faculty, if you give us half an hour, we'll go on forever, but ask us to do it in 2 minutes, like not a chance. So amazing work you all did in presenting this in 2 minutes. And so please join me in giving all of the students a last round of applause and appreciation for all they've done. I also want to acknowledge the faculty mentors who are here today, as well as those that couldn't make it. This is obviously an opportunity to get some contributions to our research projects, and I've also had the opportunity to be a mentor. But part of what faculty mentors in this program commit to is working closely with the students. There's a whole mentorship program that's part of the application process that we require, and they commit to at least meeting weekly. And in any research project like this, there's a lot of supportive students beyond just the research question itself, and understanding resources on campus, understanding the whole research enterprise, and the personal support that goes along with that. So it's a real commitment on the faculty part. It's a lot of labor that's often invisible. And so I really want to appreciate and thank all the faculty mentors in the Building Belonging program. Please join me. And faculty, please stay tuned. The next round of Building Belonging applications for next year will actually go out in June. We have been putting it out in September, but we got some feedback, I think Karen Hull is here, that it's often useful to be able to plan ahead of time for those students who are not graduating, who might be around next year. You can commit to them ahead of time to continue in that work and really strengthen that sense of building belonging. So please keep an eye out for that application going out in June. I want to thank again Alec and Claudia Webster, without whom support this program would not be possible at all. So please join me in thanking them again. And then finally, last but not least, there's a tremendous amount of invisible labor behind running and managing this program. There's all the reviewing applications, it's sending out the emails to all the individual students and faculty, it's managing the financial processes of getting you all the support, it's helping to organize this event and the PowerPoints and all that's behind that. So we have a tremendous staff at the Institute for Social Transformation, without whom this work would be absolutely impossible, and it put in a tremendous amount of time. So I want to acknowledge them. Evan Knight in the back is our Director of Operations. Sue Grasso is over there, is Research and Community Support. Dario Leon, is Dario here? He's out back. He's our community research supporter. And Joni White also helps with the event, and she's around here somewhere as well. So please thank them all. So appreciative of the opportunity to work with you all. And finally, please join us outside for some food and refreshments and a chance to talk more about this great research in building belonging.